And here you go.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to some of you here on this Sunday's edition for some Monday of Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. I'm your host, Sandy Yannone, and I am always astounded by how the poets gather for the live open mics. We're going to hear today from a beautiful cavalcade of poets from different locations, different time zones. Many of our beloved favorites that we get to hear from often. Some folks who've returned after a long hiatus, and it's just going to be a quite special occasion for poetry. I like to remind everyone that Cultivating Voices Live Poetry was not a reading series that was in existence prior to the pandemic. It emerged because of the vision of my sister, who put me on the spot and said, let's do something to make a platform for poets to have a space to read, knowing that everything was going to be shutting down as a result of the pandemic. And she was visionary, and she was absolutely correct. And I didn't expect that we'd be going on as long as we have. And I'm grateful that we've been able to just continue to collectively expand and grow, meet new friends, continue to spread the poetry across the time zones. And as I was saying earlier, before in our pre-program, get to meet people that I would never, ever have met, probably. And now I can't imagine. I can't imagine my life of poetry without all of the voices of the people in this room, and the many people that we have had on the program over the course of these 2 years. So welcome to our group for today. We have a baker's / poets dozen of poets for our live open mic today. You'll be hearing from them. Each one will have 5 minutes to share their powerful work. I want to particularly just mention a couple things before we start with the live open mic. I want to acknowledge that one of the first things that I wrote and posted when we were getting ready for the very first open mic, on our very first poetry broadcast on March 29th, 2020, was I quoted from Muriel Rukeyser's book, The Life of Poetry, where she said, in times of crisis, we summon our strength. And with the global with the watchful eyes of the world on the events in Ukraine and the reports of the political unrest, and you fill in the blank for how you want to describe what's going on in the world, but the world is what do I say? The world is on fire as a result of these events, and I think we're all deeply affected. I want to acknowledge that even on this program, we have hosted both Ukrainian and Russian poets who bring a very different humanity, a different perspective and humanity than the conflict, the conflict that we're seeing. I'm not going to characterize and go into discussing it with all of you. You are people of consciousness and conscience, and I know you are aware of what's going on. But just to say that I was really mindful that even on this platform, we've been able to have poets from the very country that's under siege, from the country that is perpetuating that siege, and bring poetry to a place that can support exacerbating, at least for a moment, the strife that is sometimes the world. So I want to acknowledge our friends, our poets, our friends who have families that are directly struggling while we struggle with them, but in a very different way than if a family member of yours is in Ukraine or again, my heart goes out to our poet friends. Okay, let's turn to our poetry for today. And again, thank you to everyone who has agreed to read for today. We're going to open up for today with our good friend, the wonderful poet, Julian Matthews. Thanks for being with us today, Julian.
Hi. This is a bit of a ramble. It's called The Rain in Ukraine. Somewhere in Sumatra, Indonesia, the earth shook today. It's 6.2 on the Richter scale. It's a couple of 100 miles away, but we felt the tremors here in Malaysia. I felt woozy for a few seconds, but it wasn't from the quake. The goddamn neighbor above is retiling. The drilling is so loud, it's like a giant dentist using a jackhammer for a wisdom tooth extraction for a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And I'm bitching about it like a nervous patient in the waiting room next door. The isolation has magnified the noise. I'm as mad as hell and yelling at the ceiling. Meanwhile, somewhere in Ukraine, bombs are raining down from the sky, hitting apartment blocks just like mine. A photo of a woman emerges on the news with hastily bandaged head, her face streaked in dried blood, her world-weary vacant blue eyes carrying the sorrow of 1 million mothers from all wars before. No time to run, nor time to hide, nor even time to cry out. And I imagine somewhere in the bowels of the Kremlin, in a pristine nuclear-proof bunker, Putin is tinkling ivories to the tune of Moscow windows. To match his hammer heart, his sickle soul, he's stepping on shiny golden pedals while shiny boots trample the muddied, bloodied grounds of Kiev. The new Nero is no one's hero, nothing more than an effing zero. He's probably having Ukrainian borscht for his supper, slurping it down with black caviar and beluga vodka while monitoring the invasion on a live screen where thousands are about to die in his name and millions are about to be displaced, all for one man's misplaced ego. Clown Bojo says we cannot and will not just look away, while hoping his own people will look away from his party shenanigans. The macaroon says France will show no weakness, knowing this timely invasion will only strengthen his re-election bid. China's Z is probably rubbing his hands with glee, knowing that no lunch is ever free, especially not with a bear or a dragon. While America will do a head fake and dust off its reset button. Sanctions? We don't need no stinking sanctions. Diplomacy only works when the buttons are real and attached to a nuclear device. Dictators don't like being dictated to. It's the old binary. You're either with us or against us, right or left, black or white, Christian or Muslim, Shia or Sunni, Arab or Jew, Russian or Ukrainian, peace or war. Here is the line in the sand. Watch them cross it every time, again and again. The opposite of love is not hate, it's dickheads and ingrates too full of themselves. Love is too abstract a concept for the entitled, the privileged, the super rich, the power mad. When you think with your prick, the earth ruptures in your mind and spews magma. No containers are big enough for your volcano's red tears or a million mothers' fears. Violence begets violence. Biden will don his G.I. Joe duds, bite the bullet, and send his newly adopted sons and daughters to their early graves, as if the pandemic hasn't filled enough of those already. Line up your Rambos for the final mumbo dumbos, unleash the Kraken, and remember to send in Blackwater to clean up the bracken after. War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. And the drillers upstairs have stopped, and there is silence. The wife is all packed. She's off to a 3-day meditation retreat, and she worries whether I'll be able to feed myself. I reassure her I'll be okay. I'm a big boy. She leans over to kiss me, mask still on, then steps out the door. I return to my laptop table, and my tiny world order of disorder is restored. Well, somewhere in the world tonight, men we call our leaders are gathering around a table, flexing their arms, their military muscles, throwing young lives into a hat so they can tell us they are big boys too. And online, I read that the Ukrainian woman with the blood-streaked face is a teacher. She's 53. Her name is Helena, which means bright, shining light. Outside my window, it begins to rain again. End poem, thank you.
Here in Julian's example is precisely why we gather, for the opportunity to use poetry to respond in the immediacy of the moment. And it might not be the poem that we crafted over months and months time, but the power of that immediacy speaks through. I so appreciate that we're able to open with your poem of conscience. Thank you very much, Julian. And it wasn't really rambling to me. I thought it was amazing how you began with that rain and Helena and came back full circle. Thank you very, very much. We move next to over to across the pond for here, and welcome with Pratibha Castle. And I want to just let everyone know, give a shout out that Pratibha's new pamphlet, her first, is just out after a long wait from her publisher. So a big shout out and congratulations. And there it is, a triptych of birds. And we were fortunate to hear from her read in a new book showcase when we thought it was just on the cusp of being published. And I'm very, very happy to celebrate with you today. It's because it's very, very recently out. So congratulations. And following Pratibha will be Matt Mooney.
Thank you so much, Sandy. It's so great to be back here. It's really lovely and to see all your faces. Okay, I'm going to read a different poem than I thought I was going to start with. It is from the pamphlet, and it's not one I've read here before. It's called Under the Bridge. A steel dragon thunders past, leaves a smoke trail in the sky, plea for the child below the bridge with little shield save gloves, pudding bowl, school hat, miraculous blue medal of the lady. Blue, the colour of the first ray, virgin's veil, capes of the daughters of Mary. Innocence, Eve before the fall, flowers whose tongueless bells chime spells to snare the senses. The child abandoned to a bellow of coal, and the beast's mad gallop down the rails, her scream silenced by the train whistle's shriek. Drab Mac, peeled back, exposes male fright, moon white slug slick on the zipper, glint of prurient eyes. Pimpled cheeks of a Slovene melting in the shadows to return in sleep on the back of the beast, dependable as a train blast's shrill defeat. No cape to warm her now, just ice spite, clanking, chugging, churning. Thank you. The book is dedicated to my mother, and many of the poems in there are a celebration of her, and also to do with a healing for me and a healing around our relationship. This is not from the book, but it also sort of carries on the theme, and it's called Hug. It's a newer poem. My mother's heart was a lake, its frozen surface cracked when I was young, with insults hurled her way, and I hurled many, wounding like rocks, till her cool glaze became a starburst of splintered love. Even her delight in daffodils, withered since the bunch of yellow bells she gave me on my 15th birthday, whose whole heads I bit off, mad at her for some imagined slight, and in an acid spritz of blame spat her way. And my mother, murmuring to herself, sure the poor girl's tired, patted my arm, our only physical exchange, for we never hugged. Having learnt years later how an infant monkey languishes if deprived of its mother's touch, I subjected her to a lingering clinch. Not just a brief ooh la la peck on either cheek, stay 2 feet away from one another sort of hug, but a belly to belly, chest to chest clasp, palming up and down her back as though grooming the silk-eyed Persian hunkered on the couch, glaring, and on a normal day, the only flesh my mother or myself would handle. And when she tried to edge away, I fastened my grip, like now I've got you, Ma, you're going nowhere. The way when small, I ached for her to hold me limpet tight. Thank you. Have I eaten up my time, or have I time for a very short one?
If it's very short.
If I can find it. Oh my God. Hold on a sec. Dawn Walk 41. Yes. Dawn Walk. The sea sparkles. A glimmer of fallen stars glint on the horizon of coral light. I pause at the water's edge, bowl my hands as if dawn might be cradled like a gull's egg. Waves sluice the shore. The legs of an oyster catcher stood head bent, a prophet hearkening. My bare toes scrabbling at lines fine as capillaries. Mysteries clammed in sand and heart, dissolving as I watch. Sun seeping through the clouds is an ache for my mother's smile at our chance meeting by the cross, when instead of spoiling her with tea and crack, I hurried on. Thank you.
Always a wonder, those poems for Pratibha Castle. And please do, folks, a reminder, feel free to put your information about your latest publications in the chat. And the Wildcard open mic, we haven't gathered that information ahead of time, but we welcome and encourage you to share. So if folks are wanting to order your work, thank you so much for being here, Pratibha. Beautiful, as always, wonderful work. And I love hearing the newer work as well as from the pamphlet. And congratulations once again. Well, we turn to our dear friend, Matt Mooney, and following Matt will be Isaac Cohen. Good evening, Matt.
Good evening, Sandy, and good to be connected up with you again. And I have 3 poems to read tonight from my first collection called Droving. And I picked them especially because of well, the first one I picked especially because of the Ukraine. The one I have as the number 1 here is called Forgotten Author. It's about the sound of sweet music playing on the radio on a Sunday when Northern Ireland was in turmoil in 1972. In a quiet apartment room in Listowel. On a soft Sunday duskness, our hate-torn island yields a match of football prowess on the altar of Croke Park's peace. Some long-dead romantic's music awakens the strong strings of life buried deep in our chests, dissolving political battering. Some small offering, unknown, turns back the hands of time, an accidental drop soothing like sweet rain after thirst. All the good is hidden, unheeded by the mass of wounded souls sorrowing, closing fists in hatred. The system sways and shakes. Children cry quietly inwardly. Soldiers are no Santa Clauses. Saracens pause, roll and roar. The science of life confounded. The outspreading life tree sheds its dead leaves on the Emerald Isle. And the second poem I have for you is a poem about a child's mind and the effect that us adults can have on children when peace does not prevail in the home at any particular time. How easily influenced they are by happenings. Now, how much more can they be affected by war? It's called Another Humpty Dumpty. The tensions of twosomeness set off the sparks that suddenly flared into angry fires, descending on their lives. The sickly silence spread with hollow heart from room to room. Put underfoot a flower, a 4-year-old little girl blown away by the sound of the storm. Alone with her dolls in her air-raid shelter. From her bedroom door, I saw her seated there, saying over and over her rhyme of the fall of Humpty Dumpty, who sat on the wall. And I'll finish with Bog Beauty. We'd wander both in this wild place, where the pillibean, excited in her role of mother to great chicks, somewhere on a turtog in the sacred risk, scarce blends her call with the Minon Eiruk. We'd walk hand in hand by the yellow flaggers flowering in the riverbed. We'd sit on wooden posts, resting o'er the stream, and dance our toes in the smooth balm of bogs. Slaked with thirst, we'd fall on the well's edge and dip our faces down to drink from our Mother Earth, united side by side, as evening vibrates with Minon Eiruk exultance. I feel the pillibeans are impatient, seeking their own peace, calling me parasite in their paradise. We'd stay and weave a coverlet from the canavine. The crows would surely call us in the bog brisk dawn as they swoop from trees above in the tall woods beside us. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Matt Mooney. Be sure to put your collection, because it's not the one that you've been reading from of late, and make sure folks know where they can get that. Thank you very much. Always appreciate having you here with us. And we're going to turn next to again a dear human that I'm so glad when I see Isaac Cohen arrive in the room, and that'll be followed by Josephine LoRe.
Yes, dear Sandy, dear Kim, dear Dawn, dear all my friends in the world. My poem is to my mother, Cohen Mazal, blessed memory. Isaac Cohen, amazing journey. Yes. The voice called me. Go visit your mom in another dimension. I prepared my laser bicycle. I arrived in paradise. I saw my mommy caring for the jasmine bush. I embraced her. She gave me nectar from jasmine. We spoke about life and culture. She took me to see my grandmother, Sylvia, and my grandfather, Makhluf. We met my uncle, Avishai, and his wife, Terenza. We happily played dominoes. In the evening, we went to listen to the liturgical poet David Riachi. He remembered me from Beersheba. I was 5 years old and shook his hand when he sang in the Rabbi Chai Tayeb synagogue. He dedicated a song to me and invited me to read one of my poems. He spoke with me and I told him about the cultural activity in Israel and in the world. The angel appeared and told me, the time of your visit is over. I kiss all my family and return to our small world. עכשיו, there are statics. The rabbi performed major miracles. So people didn't believe that he died. Thank you, Isaac Cohen, Israel.
Thank you, Isaac, joining us
Thank you.
from Israel, and that image of the family playing dominoes.
Yeah.
I think of the family playing dominoes together. And I happened to get a picture last night from on the phone from my sister playing Scrabble with my mother, and thinking about the Scrabble board and the words on the Scrabble board and how I might take those words and use them as a prompt to write a poem from. Like, let them be the fodder for something. But that image of the family playing dominoes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Be well, Isaac.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Josephine LoRe is next, joining us from Calgary, and I want to give a preview of something exciting coming up for Joe. Is on March 7th. Be sure to mark your calendars, because Josephine will be joining another person who will be reading a little later in the program, Michael Anthony Ingram, on quintessential listening. So we look forward to hearing your take on the questions that Michael often asks of his guests. And yes, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for that. When I saw it come across my feed, I was like, yes, that's great. So Enjoy. Thanks for being here, Joe. Always look forward to hearing your work. So take it away.
Thank you so much. It's an honor, and there's still it still feels unreal to me, and I'm nervous and I'm excited and everything else. But thank you so much. And yes, I'm looking forward to listening to Michael read later on today. This is a brand new poem, and I typically don't get very political in my poetry, but it's impossible not to in this moment. We've held our breath through 700 pandemic days, waiting to awake into normal. Now images scream through the screen, people running from the beast, mouths agape in soundlessness. And my students come up to ask me in a hush, Madame, will the world erupt in war again? And I have another, it's a short one as well. This one is called I Have Tasted Loss. The scrape of sand behind eyelid, pebble lodged in my teeth. I have swallowed whole the liver I could not bring myself to chew. Been tethered to the tree, felt the pierce of arrow in my thigh, my rib, my throat. I have felt the collision of bats, the confusion of thoughts, the panic of contradiction. I have lain on dampened sand, awoken to the scuttle of scarabs, watched wordlessly as limbs get carried off within their grasp, one by one. I have swaddled loss, inhaled the stale milk scent of the final exhalation. I have held the lifeless body to my breast. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for bringing both of those poems today. It's hard not to write from within and respond to the moment that we find ourselves, in, from our local place, because the global consequences remain so vast. And I'm not surprised, and I'm grateful for the poetry today, in response to what we're seeing and hearing from whatever outlets we partake in. And I have held the body to the breast. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Joe. And we'll see you very soon. If certainly on Quintessential Listening, we'll hear you and see you, but if not sooner, I hope to. Well, now we get to travel to, I think she's in Alaska. She travels quite a bit. So I don't want to presume, but often joining us from Alaska, Sandra Kleven, and I do hope that you're following all the amazing work that Sandy does to promote poets, particularly as editor of Cirque magazine. It's an exquisite journal. So welcome, Sandy. And following Sandy will be Don Krieger.
Thank you. And Don is the featured poet next month at Poetry Parlay, which everyone can attend. That's going to be really great. I'm going to start with a poem I'm reading frequently because I want people to start to remember it. It's called Kathleen on the Cusp, written when a friend was ready to abandon a project because of frustration getting it into the world. So I wrote this for her. What you think or feel does not matter. Neither your darkening heart, not bleeding hands, You were taken years ago when you gave yourself to it, to be used like a broad brush, used like a broom, once blush, once bloom, a pivot away from dumb luck. Scant credit for suffering, first principle of Buddhists, the beats, beaten, cries no blip on the supreme lyricist's scope, webbed feet flat, flapping, flipping off the first frozen slick, your tingling tongue, fingers that tap toward the sky, stepping skyward fingers. You gave it up years ago. Your gift absorbed cosmic mathematics. You can't recount, can't undo. Someone is watching, holding the sparrow. The unknown knows your name, says it. Listen, hide away with no pencil, no pen. It makes no difference. Walls will bear the scratches of nails and teeth. And then from Defiant Street, my collection, I kept choosing and re-choosing as the hour was passing. I'm going to start with Requiem for the Kuskokwim, and then end with the favorite poem for my husband, passed away now a year ago. Kuskokwim, Bethel, Alaska, where I worked for a decade among the Yupik people. Requiem for the Kuskokwim. It is cold, and windows rattle with razors and hooks. Dread permeates light moments like a mean dog tied to a stove. Foreign to the territories, with tendered immunity, you walked through wild like a wraith, jingling coins, coining jingles, sure to find another word for snow. Happily, you floundered there, netted and boned. Fuel, oil barrels gleam old eyes. Willow thickets harbor generous shadows. Chimneys bluff, scouring fumes, and walls bear the stain of 6 generations. The work is serious. Memories wash terminal. Optimism and cheer are required. You go back because you were happy, shushing secrets in totes. Your bones clatter tunefully, coins hemmed in skirts, glacial silt, dust to grit, stained to half. This is the trial you were waiting for. Ankles tinkle songs of ice, while dogs of doom break loose to rut in steaming pairs. Off skies hum something low, and you heard your name on the radio. Chant your everlasting, cheeks slick with oil, ears own judgment scorn, shaking at the stove, naked from a dream, trapped by institutions of the terrible, justice begs, Father. This is the trial you were waiting for. Drag your once engravid body, bending brush to fire, sink in damp persuasion, hand it to the dark and darling drums. Now someone is at my door, of all things, but I'm going to go quickly to the short poem for Richard, which is called For Richard Who Knows Everything. One day you'll look at me and think, she's getting old, but you won't say it. You'll see lines around a grin that frowns, eyes lost in fleshy veils, creped throat, long chin, but you'll say, you are beautiful, and I'll believe you. And I'm going to have to step away to the door.
Thank you so much, Sandy, and you beat me to the punchline of announcing that Don was going to be the feature on Poetry Parlay. It's a fantastic. If you've never attended Poetry Parlay, use the opportunity of Don Krieger being the reason to go for your very first time, where you always get to hear a poet and that poet's poet of influence. And we celebrate, of course, in these days, Don's newest collection, When Danger is Past, Who Remembers? And again, the title seems even more ominous than it was when you were first sharing the work, sharing the collection with me. And now, of course, the title takes on a whole new prismatic meaning, and all the more reason folks to come out and support Don in his readings from the full collection. So without further ado, I'm very glad to have welcome Don to read today with us.
Thank you,
Followed by
Sandy.
Gordon Ferris. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Sandy, for inviting me to Poetry Parlay. I'm really looking forward to it. I want to read you two poems from this. They're short. I just want to say, when a war breaks out, there's just not a whole lot that we can do. And a lot of people just get under the covers or go to a football game or whatever. And I try to pick something small that I know about that maybe I could do something about by writing. Because there's a humility in that. We can't do everything, but we can do something. And one other thing is to not close our eyes or turn our backs to so many things. The picture behind me is Romanicious Cafe in Berlin. And today is the 89th anniversary of the Reichstag fire, the fire that burnt the German capital to the ground shortly before Hitler came to power. My dear friend, if we had sat together in a Berlin cafe on that Black election day in '32, sharing our art, laughing and learning, I know you would have spoken for evil, though the beast and his brown shirts were weaker then than ours are now. Would you still have spoken so in '33, when their mad master, so like ours, triumphed? Or weeks later when their capital burned? Or the next day when their Patriot Act passed? Or the next month when their Manzanar opened? What say you now? So like then, just weeks since our president's darlings, the uncolored beasts, swarmed our Reichstag. Which of us will pick up your tab this time? And what will it be? When is the end of friendship? Will you speak for the monsters still? Tender yet again your gaslighting caress to all of us who love you. That's my dear friend. And Shameless. By the way, that poem's been translated into German. I'm going to post a link to a reading where you can hear Anja Stan read it. She's reading for us, I think in a week or maybe two. Shameless. Pol Pot, Cambodia. Idi Amin, Uganda. Augusto Pinochet, Chile. 14 US presidents, our founders, each guilty, crimes against humanity. How many capitals bear their names? Jefferson, Missouri, Madison, Wisconsin, Jackson, Mississippi, Washington, DC. That's shameless.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. I always appreciate what you know, Billy Brown said here, which in your poetries, often speaking that truth to power, and what you said in your remarks about, you know, reminds me of going back to like Akhmatova and Svatayeva and so many Mandelstam, and so many others in like the anthology Against Forgetting, Carolyn Forshay's Against Forgetting. It's the poets that are going to document, they're going to break the silences before the politicians. And we are going to be the ones that bear the witness, right? There it is. Yeah, my copy is usually here with me. I think it's tucked behind Fixed and Free right now. But that's Carolyn Forshay's Against Forgetting. If you are not familiar with the collection, I encourage you, because it is poetry of witness to so many of the atrocities over the 20th century. And then she and her co-editor went back and did another anthology that went back to about 1500 to use poetry to document and bear witness to the events of the world that the politicians wanted to have be silent.
Yeah, I think that one was called The Poetry of Witness, and it's Duncan Wu.
It's Duncan Wu, that's right. It's Duncan Wu, that's right. It's Duncan Wu. Yeah, it's in my office, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's very, very good.
It's very good. Very good.
What some people are reading today, and what a lot of people write, is what I call the poetry of conscience. We're not there. We're not on the battlefield. But we care.
Yeah, and you often hear me use the word conscience rather than witness, and they are different. So thank you for illuminating that that nuance between the two. A poet like Miklos Radnati was a poet of witness. Hungarian poet was, well, anyway, I could go on about the poets of witness, and thank you for bringing your poetry of conscience today and always. Again, folks, go to Poetry Parlay next week, and Don will be reading with us in a new book showcase, also coming up later this month, from When Danger Is Past, Who Remembers? All right, we go to Gordon Ferris. Thank you for being here today and reading with us in the open mic, and followed by Michael Anthony Ingram.
Good evening, everybody. The first poem I read is called Things Slipping Away. I try to capture how silence rolls time along in slow seconds. I try to capture the distance in your eyes, the dimple beneath your thin lips. I try to capture the way your hair twists and turns, how it glistens even in shade, how your smile fades, then reignites when you realize it has. I try to capture how long fingers tap that nervous song, and I try to capture that racing heart, that tear that falls. And this one is called In Spring. It's hush, hush, quiet here. All hums of modernity are switched off. I can hear the rain drip, drip, drip outside the curtain window. The wind howls and rocks the wheelie bin, weighted down by our daily trash. Caught up in a hazy reverie by a water's edge on a lake nearby, I saw a fish rise and a decaying flower come back to life and burst into color. Reminisce. So we sit here waiting for the head to pop around the corner, for the light to re-emerge, for life to begin anew. On a windshield, the fly lands. You look closely to make sure there's no miniature ahead before you kill it. You look beyond the houses to the hills and trees, the green and brown of nature, where you long to be. You ponder on past times, easy faces, familiar, unafraid. This is called Listen. Beneath my erupting display lay something quiet and aching. Behind these tired eyes hides an invisible dam holding back the tears ready to erupt, almost reaching to the top, just won't reach overflow. When asked to do what causes me distress, I hide my displeasure just behind a deceptive smile. I am feeling pain. Now, my friend, my grimace is internal, never shaped by faces about. I don't ignore you. It's a wall I build to hide from the world. And this one is called Mother. Mother ironed everything in sight: socks, shorts, jackets, trousers, school ties, cloths, floor cloths. They all got thrown into the pile. Beds were stripped early in the morning, left blowing on the wind, ironed, and then replaced on the bed. Once she dried coal bags to return them to the coal man, and he smiled and said there's no need for that. All habits picked up from her hard, unsmiling mother. Mother soaked up all the pain for her children to make them feel better about themselves. She looked at the fly in the ceiling, wondered if it was her father returning in the shape of an insect to lovingly watch over her from a higher place. She often thought her past had come back to haunt her in all manner of imagined ways. Sometimes I imagine I sense her presence and smell her distinct perfume. Those times I'm so sure she's there. Sometimes I'm so sure she's there. Sometimes I see her in the corner of my eye and get the scent of her cigarette smoke. And don't be surprised when I turn and see that I'm on my own. And the last one I'm going to do now is called, oh, I have read that one already. This is called Reminisce. So we sit here waiting for the head, oh, I've read that one. What if the birds stopped sounding the wake-up call? What if the leaves in the trees stopped moving on the wind, breaking the silence? Would we still rise? Would we still gaze out on the land and wonder at its beauty? That's it. Sorry about being nervous.
Thank you so much, Gordon. And I think that we are definitely in that time of what if, all the more reason not to turn ourselves away from what is in fact in front of us, as people from different nations, and as our own citizens in our own local communities. I keep saying there is the local and there is the global, and every single day we have questions to contend with. Every single day we have questions to contend with, from within our families to within the much larger landscape that is being part of a global citizenship and community. Our poetry speaks to the entire range of that experience. And it's really why I love to come together every week and see what people are offering to answer to those questions or ask those questions. I'm thinking of LaToiya Whipple's poem last time about questions. So thanks again, Gordon. Now we move to Michael Anthony Ingram. And I want to send out a big shout out to you, my friend, on the occasion of the 200th episode of Quintessential Listening airing. It's a great milestone, and it's a testament to how you continue to bring the voices of conscience and the voices of witness to your program, and to ask such fabulous questions of the poets and illuminate their work in luminous ways, illuminate their work in luminous ways. And I love what you do. I love who you bring. And here's to 200 more episodes.
Thank you so much, Sandy. So much is happening in the world. We know that. So much is happening here at home too. And I think you talked earlier, Sandy, just a few minutes ago, about the global community, but there's also the local community. So I'd like to recite a piece that I've shared many times in my travels across the United States. The title is Beneath the Shade of the Sheltering Tree. Once, beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, a man sought refuge from the blistering heat of the oppressive and callous side. He was thirsty for the clear, cool water. He yearned to taste the elusive goodness so sweet that it promised hope for a brighter day. Yet he was afraid to drink. He had heard the story that if he placed his colored hands into the clear, cool waters of the river called America, he would change it and it would never, ever taste as good. So beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, he sat and clasped his colored hands and cried, oh, how he cried. Before long, beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, a man living with mental illness sought refuge from the unrelenting heat of the indifferent and harsh sun. He had lived a shunned life, befriended only by resolve and determination, yet like them, he was afraid to drink. He had heard the story that he placed his shunned and friendless hands into the clear, cool waters of the river called America, he would contaminate it and would never, ever taste as good. So beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, he sat and clasped his unwanted hands and he cried, oh, how he cried. After a while, a penniless child joined them. He too sought refuge from the battering heat of the brutal and hard-hearted side. He had lived an impoverished life. Yet like them, he was afraid to drink. He had heard the story that he placed his unequal and poverty-stricken hands into the clear, cool waters of the river called America, he would dirty it and it would never, ever taste as good. So beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, he clasped his unwanted hands and he cried, oh, how he cried. Later, a woman who loved another woman joined them. She too sought refuge from the scalding heat of the unforgiving and unfeeling sun. She had lived her life like an apparition, and she longed to come out whole and free. And like them, she was afraid to drink. She had heard the story that she placed her immoral and disgraceful hands into the clear, cool waters of the river called America. She would pervert it, and it would never, ever taste as good. So beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, she sat and clasped her unwanted hands and she cried, oh, how she cried. Finally, a recently immigrated family joined them. They had moved from distant lands, seeking refuge from the burning and vicious sun, hoping to find a home Yet like all of them, they were afraid to drink. They had heard the story that they placed their alien and unknown hands into the clear waters of the river called America. It would infect it and it would never ever taste as good. So beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear cool waters of the river called America, they sat and clasped their rejected hands and they cried, oh, how they. As time wore on, beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear cool waters of the river called America, all of them desiccated from life and wasted tears. Their thirst grew. And as their thirst grew, so built their collective strength and courage to risk it all and drink what was so close but seemed so hard. So they all cupped their disgraceful, shunned, impoverished, alien, and unwanted hands and dipped them into the clear cool waters of the river called America, and they drank, and they drank, and they drank. It tasted good. It tasted sweet. They all realized that their hands did not contaminate the river called America because it only knew the nature of their hearts, souls, and minds. Their drinking from the clear, cool waters of the river called America didn't change it. It didn't taint it. It didn't stain it. It didn't drain it. All of their hands helped to replenish it, and they drank to receive strength finally. And they drank, following wherever the river went. How they drank, partakers of the clear, cool waters of the river called America. Thank you. All right.
You heard it from Michael Anthony Ingram. You heard it from his mouth to our ears. I can't say anything more than what you just heard. Go back and listen from the rivers of America. From the rivers of America to all of us here today on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. And a reminder to quintessentially listen with Michael Anthony Ingram every single week on his fabulous program, Quintessential Listening. And Josephine LoRe will be featured on March 7th. So partake, my friends, partake. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And
I love this place.
you always bring it. You always bring it. You always bring it. Oh my gosh. Thanks for bringing it today.
All right.
Well, next we go from East Coast to West Coast, and we get to hear the poetry. Jeff Kaliss, welcome, Jeff. And Jeff will be followed. Let me make sure I am getting things accurate here for this afternoon. Jeff is followed by LaToiya Whipple. Thanks for being with us today, Jeff. I look forward to what you will offer.
Thank you for speaking your hearts. I have a couple of poems dealing with migration, forced and not. The first one is in the persona of a wonderful Brazilian musician, Célia Malheiros, whom I got to know. And this is a tale told in her voice. I feel very connected with you as I am writing this, but also reading this for the first time, just like you. And you. Will you be cared for by Yaya, as I was as a little girl in Rio, where my crazy flower of a mama left my father, the man in the television, left him helpless to put order in our hearts? Are you holding my hand? How do you feel when you read how much I care about your caring about me? Yaya was from Bahia, the warm womb of Brazil, and she came with Candomblé, the river on which the African saints had sailed westward in slave ships in dark days. Yaya cooked us cozido and curau and delighted with us in our girlish dancing. Luis Gonzaga Malheiros, my esteemed father, could never be a mama. So he sat himself at a worn wooden desk to prove the inexistence of God. Maria G. Gloria, in her separate sticky room in Copacabana, missing the mothering of me, did auditions for death. Neither Louise nor Maria succeeded, and in between them, I began to hear the music, the breath of the waves, the clamoring coro of the sidewalks, and my way started to compose itself. I bloomed and learned to be plucked and tested my browned and blonded body by quickening its head with smoke and colors. Sometimes I saw what Mommy saw and was glad and sad to see it. Daddy sent me away to the Disneyland of the North, where I learned to order greasy food with hard consonants. But I remembered to sing, and I found America yearning towards my diphthongs, seeking my salt-watered musical memories, wanting curing from my dear dead Yaya. Are you listening now as I sing chojo and bossa? Have you married me and made a mother of me? And now, are we world enough? Thank you for that. The second poem is pretty brand new, although there are a few of you that have already heard this, and this came out of my experience of the Ukraine, principally through TV. And what I did, following my instincts, was I turned to find a Ukrainian folk song and printed out a translation of the song and then reacted to it. The song is called Glupitsa Moya, which means my dear dove. Golupitsa moya, golupitsa. Dove of love, why must you warble across the dawning of a day of dooming? Coo, coo, coo into the coming of the crawling of the cruel, while all the world is watching, but not hearing. As you grieve for the heaven you should have along your hills, the ample, ancient, quiet fruit, now spoiled by their speeches, rotted by reports. Golupitsa moya, golupitsa. There is a joyous song for you, for us, upon our unarmed hands. Your wings have wearied waving over borders, your airstreams chased by flights of greedy metal. How can you watch for beetles and for flowers? How could you know how home should look and smell? Golupitsa moya, golupitsa. I hope our hands can learn to handle loving. I hope voices can learn your melodies, and we might make a chorus for your cooing. But now I'm forced to hide far from your sky, or find a way to fly without your wings, to some place that is not at all my place, to somewhere where they may not sing my song. Golupitsa moya, golupitsa. Please find a way to follow, to hide inside my heart and keep us warm. I promise I will keep us safe in kindness, and I will find a way to bring us home. Thank you all for listening.
Oh, wow, that is beautiful, beautiful. The chorus of cooing. Thanks for offering that chorus today. I always appreciate how you weave your love of music and the stories that you've amassed about music into the poetry and make it its own music about music. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jeff. And yeah, we look forward to next time. Well, we have our final three readers. Next, we will hear from LaToiya Whipple, and my head continues to spin from those questions that you asked during the last reading that we had the pleasure to hear. And following LaToiya will be David Hornibrook, which I'm so excited to welcome David back and hear what David's been up to. But first we hear from LaToiya. Welcome.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you very much. I am super excited to be here with each and every one of you today in virtual community. And I am also excited to be sharing with you all from my new book that is available on Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. And it is entitled Broken, Crushed, Shattered, Mended, Healed. How to Survive a Broken Heart by LaToiya Whipple. And today I will be sharing with you all one piece from the book, and it is a short piece, and it is entitled Gone but Not Forgotten. Gone but not forgotten. I will never forget the sense of joy you created in my inner being. Gone, but not forgotten. I will never forget the sense of fulfillment you created inside me. Gone, but not forgotten. I will forever cherish our moments that united us. Gone, but not forgotten. I will forever smile when I think of you. Gone, but not forgotten. Thank you for showing me how it feels to be valued. Gone, but not forgotten. Thank you for showing me how it feels to be desired. Gone, but not forgotten. In peace. Thanks for listening.
there is a way. There is a way that you bring those words, and it's as if I've never heard them before. And I'm understanding them in the deepest way for the first time. Gone, but not forgotten. Thank you, LaToiya.
Thank you.
Until next time, my heart to your heart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love it. Well, I'm going to bring out my spring heart for David Hornibrook, even before I hear what Dave is going to read, because it's been a long slumber since I've had the gift to hear your poetry, my friend. So glad that some of us in the room are getting to hear you for the first time, and some of us I know are thrilled to be hearing you today for whatever number of time that is. So welcome back, and take it away. And then we will close with Cynthia Steele. Oh, what a great reading today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, and thanks to everybody. It's been a long time. I have not forgotten how incredible this group is, but it feels like I've forgotten because it's, wow, just getting me all over again. So I've got a new project that I've been working on. Not very long, but it feels like forever because it's had a lot of starts and stops, and it's different every time, but I'll read some poems from that. This is called Burning Question. Cottonwood broke into shimmer. Oak rained acorn on hollowed ground. I wanted only to be a robin, so I took off my shoes. I wanted only to be a robin swallowed entire by the hawk of your mystery. So come, make me lie down in this green pasture. Shepherd, shall I not want? This is called Boundary. The forbidden garden shed's red door hangs open near the end of summer. A shaft of sunlight penetrates the parted threshold, revealing a million dust particles swirling like time-lapsed stars in the stale air, and row after row of wide-mouthed mason jars stuffed with skinless fruit, pear flesh suspended in juice, green peppers, engorged tomatoes pressed against one another. They have waited a very long time. They have waited forever in the broad darkness for the promise of a young face, eyes open, lips parted. Against symmetry. Friends, let us know one another in intimate ways. The moon, in minuscule fractions, even as you read this, is leaving us. I am thinking of what I would like to say to you and how I would like to hold my palms very carefully, open. The eastern bluebird prefers meadow, some tall trees, but I will not engage in the substitution of bird imagery for you or me. Have you considered the erotic properties of a river, its roll and slight reveal? So brief, it changes the same moment it's seen. A fair amount of whimsy should be employed in the drawing of maps. accuracy in maps is a means of control. Have you considered the mystical properties of a river? Draw from it with a cup, and all you will be left with is water. A lake is formed where two imaginations overlap. Plumb lines fail here, and no one can measure the shape of the edges. A complex underneath the cover of the covered bridge, your eyes and sunlight and mine and wave patterns of shadow on the river below. Water carves out routes and the earth remembers them. Friends, let us alter one another in wild and unknowable ways. Beloved, let us. Driving to Lucy's market. A car caught between enormous blood moon hooded by cloud and the red-orange fire glow in the eastern sky becomes precarious and small, winding through farm fields, so tiny that cresting hills feels like bravery. And inside the car, caught between those gargantuan poles, a vulnerable music, fragile and finer than glass, the totality of the desire. It's really good to be here again. Thanks.
Everybody, David Hornibrook, and David's debut collection from Wayne State University Press was and still is Night Manual. It's a collection I truly cherish, and if you don't have it, and if you are not familiar with David's work, I recommend that take a peek. And David, put in the chat, please. You're a humble person, I know, but please, if you would, put the contact information in the chat for your collection.
Thanks, Sandy.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's so great to see you. And until next time. And new poems. Great, great. All right, my friends, our final reader for today is the wonderful Cynthia Steele, doing her own good work and her good work with Sandy Kleven at Cirque. So thanks for closing us out today, Cynthia, and looking forward to what you will share with us. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Sandy. I was inspired by the mother poems today. So this poem appeared in Pensive, a global journal of spirituality and the arts. Mama's laughter. Mama's laughter kept away dragonflies, pushed her head back, shook hard her slim shoulders, flooded over my soft childhood laughter, and made all seem light. She kept interrupting my dreams through bright Alaska summer nights, magnetized men to her easy ways, gut-tight laugh, rat-a-tat-tat, howitzer laugh, like we all have in this family. Campfire beer toasting August hippies. No, stay. Interwoven hours in Shangri-La. Her Ghazi Raja top blows an Indian breeze. My titties are way too small to offend anyone, she says as she bends and shows her smooth stomach, stretch marks on bronze. Between her hanging nipples on her fleshy bumps, the earth delights in feeling her bare feet, long copper hair, hookah pipe on jeansy knees. Michael, Cliff, Ted, Dave, sister, mama, me. 6 people toke off around hookah pipe. Toking, cooking, corn, potatoes, fresh trout. Want some honey? Just say yes, be polite. People come and go with baggies or foil pouches. Free love, free wishes through the night, utopian trailer park groupies. Sing of Michael's guitar and vocals, sweet kumbaya. And we poking sticks in fire ring, my lord, kumbaya. Pete Seeger, Joan Baez, Mama's banjo, twang its new perfect timbre. Like great grandpa blew the mouth organ, we got the music. Fire, sparks, cracks blue amber, till it's pitch dark for a few brief hours. And we sleep, mumbling Cat Stevens. Oh, very young, what will you leave us this time? Okay, there's one more that I'm gonna read. Thank you. This one is Sestina of Stolen Motherhood. It is inspired by Elizabeth Bishop and Gwendolyn Brooks, so you'll have to see what bit I've stolen from them. Sestina of Stolen Motherhood. December sleet slops down in sheets, dark pitch unlit, where poor mama sleeps, next to that tall filing cabinet where we assume secrets safely keep. No man lay beside her warm body, back of the house where heat collects. Mother thinks she's broken the curse. The girls sleep childless between sheets, just as she'd prayed over each body. No cries from her boy asleep. Girls not early mothers, promises kept to herself, certificates filed in the cabinet. Rectangular shadow falls from the cabinet. Warm snow shift from where it collects. The only sound, other than the stove, crack, cold winter and crisp sheets. One child awake. She cannot sleep. She holds in her womb a body. On a string, bird-like body. Damp, small pulp with no hair. The girl rises, stand beside the cabinet, cowers, hands trembling, terrified, tears collect, free-falling down her face in sheets, seems chilly so far from the stove. Thinks baby inside she would keep, grow in her barely teen body. But I know best, said darkened sheets. A mother kept behind a cabinet, her ideas of a grandmother collect. Take care of it tomorrow. Sleeps. Secretly, she holds her belly. Sleeps. The choice is not yours to keep. Rage, fear, terror, rebellion all collect. Same age as her, same body. Record of my birth in the cabinet. Generational mistakes repeat in sheets. Thank you.
Cynthia Steele, I love an open mic that ends on a sestina, because it's all about the circular. The sestina is all about the circular of the repetition of the words, and it really brings the reading full circle. Delicious, delicious. And the collision, the collide of Gwendolyn Brooks and Elizabeth Bishop. Thank you. Thank you for closing us out. And thanks to everyone for being here today for our Wildcard, our live Wildcard, I should say, our live Wildcard open mic. We heard at the top of the reading from Julian Matthews, Pratibha Castle, Matt Mooney, Isaac Cohen, Josephine LoRe, Sandra Kleven, Don Krieger, Gordon Ferris, Michael Anthony Ingram, Jeff Kaliss, LaToiya Whipple, David Hornibrook, and Cynthia Steele in our Baker's Poets Dozen for today. Again, it's always so useful to be able to come together, particularly in the times of crisis when we all do need to summon our strength. I've never been more aware of that than when I come to join you each Sunday. And I wish you all the best week that you can muster in these times that we are moving through. Keep being those poets of conscience, as Don mentioned, and stay awake to what is going on around you, locally and globally. We will be joining you next week, a few days before International Women's Day, with a celebration of women's voices from around the globe. We'll be hearing from Anne Walsh Donnelly in Ireland, Angie Stein from Italy, Archana Sani will be joining us from India, and Rachel Gomez will be joining us from New Zealand. And I hope you all will join us from your part of the world in our open mic. Have a great rest of your day, evening, afternoon. I've just had a very small dog run into my house and very enthusiastically. So use whatever joy you can find when it runs up to you, and pay attention to the joy and listen to the grief, and make poems from everything. Make poems from everything and bring them back to our open mic next week and beyond on Cultivating Voices live poetry, with a reminder that our humanity depends upon our deepest of listening, So stay true to that listening and stay safe. Take very good care of your beloveds. And of course, keep writing. Until next time, this is Sandy Yannone with the utmost gratitude to Don Krieger and Kim Ports Parsons for the support of the program, and to each one of you for being here today, and to those of you out there on Facebook. We know you're out there also listening, and to those of you who leave the comments on Facebook during the week. We'll see you next time. Be well.
Thank you, Sandy, everyone.